And Veg World magazine covers all types of news. And some of that news has been Dr. Tuttle. I was doing some research and I saw that you had him and his name on the cover of Veg World magazine, Dr. Will Tuttle. Then you had another article about prayer for compassion with where he was in the movie or the documentary, and Victoria Moron, who's a dear friend of mine in person who I'd love to have on this show as well eventually and hopefully soon, was behind this documentary. But tell me a little bit about these articles, and let's set up Will before we bring him on, because he's quite an amazing human being.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we had a chance in our issue right there, the mind body issue last July, August, to kind of tell about him and just his passion work. I mean, obviously we all have a strong basis in compassion for the animals, but he kind of teased it up a little bit more clearly for us all. And I think this article is very exciting for people to dive into. Just a little fun fact about Veg World in particular. It was created by a man named Steve Prusak. So he originally started the concept of Veg World, and now he's doing a juice concept for vegans and just getting people on track for their health. But Will was actually a big founder, if you will, with Steve. They started an event back in 2012 called Vegan Palooza, which is really interesting because and Will Tuttle backed that with them. He started it with them. They basically interviewed vegans, famous celebrity vegans like you do.
It's all connected, right? That's the whole point of today's show. It's all connected, and there you go. It's full circle.
And it was an online summit too, which was really fascinating. It was back in 2012, online summit, big event where they interviewed tons of different people, activists, doctors, authors, athletes, chefs, you name it. And Steve is a big part. Steve and Will here was a big part of that. So definitely excited to have the chance to talk with him again here, because he's been a supporter of Veg World throughout the years since its beginning. So that's really great. But I think it's great. This article that he did for us, it was a Q&A with one of our writers, Susan Wilner-Jones, and it's titled "The Quest for Peace." And I think when you think of Will, that's the biggest word.
Well, especially because he's a bestseller of the World Peace Diet, which here's the book, The World Peace Diet, #1 Amazon bestseller. And I have a couple of his books here, by the way, Buddhism and Veganism. I've marked some pages to talk to him about, Circles of Compassion. I mean, he's truly one of those enlightened beings that has, there's different types of vegans. There's those for the environment, those that are health vegans, those that are vegans for the animals and ethical reasons. And I think Will really brings it full circle, because he seems to really understand on a deep soul level all the benefits. And I think in veganism, it doesn't matter whether you start with going vegan for health or for the environment or for the animals, because what you realize is it is all connected. And so when you go vegan for the environment, you somehow have better health and the animals benefit. If you go vegan for the animals, you have better health and the environment benefits. If you go vegan for the environment, you have better health. And, it's all connected. But when you really get it is when you make the soul connection and you really have that alignment of mind, body, and spirit, which is kind of like this magazine, the Mind and Body issue on Veg World. It really does bring it all together, as we must make the mental connection. And this is important because so many people are spiritual seekers, and they haven't made, and this is no judgment, but and everyone's a seeker. But there's a lack of connection based on the way our culture is and the way that they're raised, and how the consumption of meat, which is this normalized violence on their plate, actually affects their soul and their spirit and their mental suffering in this world. Because the reality is so long as the animals are suffering, and we're killing more than 1 trillion animals a year for food, our environment, our atmosphere is filled with suffering, and we are all connected. So when the animals are suffering, and that magnitude every year, how can it not affect us and cause depression and emotional pain and aggression and all these things we feel? So I want this episode to kind of speak to people who are on the path, but maybe haven't made the transition or haven't put it together on how eating meat, even if you're not the one killing them, how participating in this animal holocaust is actually affecting you.
Right.
Not only your health, but everything.
I wanted to share a quote in the magazine that he said that is, we actually boldened it in the second page here of his article. I wish I could screen share, but it's I'll read it out. When we imprison animals for food, we are imprisoning ourselves. I call it deep veganism to look more thoroughly at the bigger picture. I just thought that conceptualized it so perfectly.
I want Will, just so everyone who's watching, Will Tuttle is going to join us. He's having some technical difficulties and he just had to restart his computer. So we're going to keep the conversation going until he gets here. I want to get to prayer for compassion as well. But before we do, I was looking up you have to read his books, because in his books, he brings up, here's Will. So in his books, but we'll bring him on in a second. In his books, he speaks like Gandhi. I mean, way ahead of his time. We're way behind our time. One day someone's going to read these books and it's going to be history. I really believe that. And Will is one of the greats when it comes to veganism and spirituality. So I know we just discussed what Veg World covered in, let me put it back up on the screen, the mind-body issue and how it's all connected and the interconnectedness of spirituality and veganism, and how when we eat the animals, we contribute to the suffering of this planet. When we contribute to the suffering of this planet, we are contributing to our own mental and soul suffering as well. Another article Veg World covered was prayer for compassion, which is amazing. If anyone hasn't seen it, they should watch it. Victoria Moran is also a wonderful spiritual being and vegan. I did her show, Main Street Vegan, and she's another one to definitely have on this show one day. But Courtney, tell me about your article here and what you guys covered in Veg World magazine.
So Will actually came to Dallas, Texas, which is where we're based, and did this event, a screening of the movie. And it was really exciting because we got to have a kind of candlelit experience. It was like a movie and his talk, and it was very intimate and it was very powerful because obviously when you think of peace, that's kind of what you think of, is candlelit kind of nighttime setting. Was outdoors. It was a beautiful night. And we got to hear him speak about his involvement in this, and just and then watch it. Obviously, I actually did not make it that night, so I wasn't there personally. So I'm just kind of recounting what my colleagues kind of experienced that night as well. But yes, the experience was beautiful. I remember watching the recaps afterwards of the kind of stories on our Instagram. You can kind of go back and see. We did it in our highlights. But it was so wonderful to have him actually here, actually come to Dallas and make that connection with our readers that are local, and just kind of speak to them about, the prayer for compassion, because it really is something that you kind of have to call upon yourself. It's harder. Like you said, we get angry, we get upset. But we also have it in
and when we eat animals and we're killing animals, we're feeding the aggression within our bodies and within our souls. I mean, not only are we ingesting their fear, and not only are we ingesting their suffering, we are becoming aggressive beings because of what we are doing. I mean, we are contributing in the murder and killing of animals, even though we don't realize that that's what we're doing, because culturally it's been so normalized, and sadly, the biggest violence begins on our plate. Okay, I'm going to bring on Will. Hi, Will. Thank you for joining us.
Great. Thank you so much, Carissa. Yeah, great to be with you guys. Thank you. Thanks.
Yes. I've always loved hearing you speak. I've heard you speak at Hippocrates. I've heard you speak in West Palm in private group settings. And I think that no matter where you speak, you're really powerful in your words. And one thing I did before the show is I pulled up some of your quotes. But there's so many more quotes that I noted in your book that's beyond this. But I love this one. There's no way to overstate the magnitude of the collective spiritual transformation that will occur when we shift from food of violent oppression to food of gentleness and compassion. And then I love this one. It's not enough to meditate for world peace and to pray for it. We need to do something about it. And when we're eating and contributing in the animal holocaust, which is what I like to call it, we're not doing our part. So what is it that you feel if someone was watching and they're not vegan, but they're a spiritual seeker and they want to make the connection, and they really, I think it's important that people don't feel judged and that they understand that they're on a path. And if they're awake enough to understand that they're on the path, that they can get there. So what would you say to talk to them if they were listening?
Thank you, Carissa. Yes, I would say to people who feel that they're on a spiritual path that, first of all, congratulations. And I want to say from the very beginning that I think spirituality is very often put into a category as being something that certain people don't feel that they're really ready for that or interested in that. But I want to say right here at the beginning that spirituality to me is something very natural. It's just being a human being and living life authentically. And that means essentially doing the best I can to question the official narratives that create violence and abuse in our society. Mm-hmm. And so, am I okay with that?
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, so in your book, Circles of Compassion, I highlighted something that I liked. You said it's under the part internal and historical consequences of animal agriculture. You said eating animals also devastates our social, psychological, and spiritual environment because it fosters an attitude of reductionism, domination, disconnectedness, and exclusiveness, which is exactly what it does, because while we eat meat, we are putting ourselves in a position of ego identity where we are superior to the other beings on this planet, and it is just as much their planet as it is our planet. So I'd like you to expand on that.
Right. Well, as I was saying, spirituality is something natural to us as human beings. It's connecting with ourselves, our true nature authentically, and then living a life of purpose and meaning. And it means questioning the official stories in our society that keep us essentially exploiters. We're exploiting other animals, we're exploiting the environment, we're using other beings and really using each other. So it's cultivating a sense of respect for others. And that's a natural sense, a sense of respect and kindness for other expressions of life. And this means healing the wounds that we've all endured being born in our society. One of the things that I emphasize in the World Peace Diet and also in the book you just mentioned, Circles of Compassion, is that all of us are wounded, right, by being born into a culture that's organized at its core around slaughtering billions of animals every day like it's no big deal. This is
3 billion a day.
And right,
3 billion a day.
It's
more than $1 trillion a year. Right.
When we include the marine animals, the numbers are astronomical. And this is all basically hidden behind the curtain. We're not supposed to look behind the curtain. So spirituality is about looking behind the curtain, making an effort to understand what's actually happening here on this planet, and then responding to that authentically. And I think all of us as human beings, when we see the violence and abuse, the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the trauma, the mutilations that are inflicted on these animals, we would not want to take out our wallets and vote for that, to pay for that. Right. We don't want to cause that suffering. And for sure, we don't want to actually eat that, right? I don't want to, it's bad enough in a sense to cause other beings to suffer, to have babies stolen from their mothers and killed, but then to actually eat the products of that, to eat the flesh of suffering and terror and fear and pain, or the secretions of these animals, it really exposes a disconnect between our actions and what's actually happening. And spirituality, if it's anything at all, it's about making connections. Making connections.
Being connected.
Making connections that are empowering to us. And so once we begin to make those connections, then we can liberate not only animals from exploitation and abuse, but we can really liberate ourselves, because as long as I'm exploiting animals, I'm actually going to be exploited myself. And we live in a whole society where we're exploiting each other. In many ways, the rich exploit the poor. Men very often exploit women. We have this exploitive mentality. So the whole idea is to free animals. That's, I think, really the foundation, because that's what we're eating.
I want to piggyback on that. So a lot of people are religious, right? And they identify with their religion. And what would you say to someone that is religious, but is eating animals? And here's a good question that's along those lines, which might be from Jane. It's from Jane. It's from the network. What would Jesus say about factory farming? Because that is exactly aligned to what I was thinking before that comment was written, is what would you say to someone who's religious, but that's eating animals as part of cultural tradition?
Question. And I would take out the word factory and replace it with animal. It has nothing to do with factory farming. It's animal farming. Whether you do it in a small backyard operation like they did in Jesus's day, or we do it on a massive factory farm, it's the same thing. It's exploiting, raping, and killing animals. Whether it's a small scale operation or a large scale operation really makes no difference. And I think I personally feel that he would be appalled and opposed to that kind of behavior, because killing animals for food is unnecessary for us as human beings. And the beautiful thing, I think the foundational truth, is that all of us as human beings have been given this wonderful gift of a physical body that does not require any animals to suffer to get the nutrients that we need to be healthy. And so I think when we look at the religions of the world, those are the institutions, really, that are charged with ethics and morality, right? With connecting and creating codes of conduct based on ethics and morality.
Right. And I think that a lot of these, whether it's human law or religious law, these are all intended versions that are to echo these higher universal laws. And sometimes, we put ourselves in a category of superior species when we are anything but that. We just have this uniform system of communication as human beings that we're able, and we're even fighting amongst each other, by the way. And that will probably end when we stop eating and killing animals for food, when we make that connection and become compassionate enough to not want to participate in any violence whatsoever. But religion, our religion is human religion. I mean, ants. I was on a trip with my mom. We went to Mashpi in Ecuador, and we went on a night hike, and there were these ants in a tree, and the guide hit the tree and shook it to show us the entire farm and colony of ants and how sophisticated it was. And we're operating. I want to let you comment on that, but then I want to read something else that you put in your book. Oh no, fire drill. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Stops. All right, but Buddhism and Veganism, another one of your good books about essays connecting the spiritual awakening and animal liberation. People are saying some good comments, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just say something that's important to understand, which is there's a difference between religion and spirituality. And the basic difference is that religion has two goals. One goal is to cultivate spirituality in people. The other goal is to transmit the values of the particular society that the religion is in and is supporting. So in religion, there's always a conflict between spirituality and the culture that the religion is part of. Whereas in spirituality, there's no conflict. In spirituality, it's basically about waking up. It's about healing. It's totally fine with questioning all the underlying stories of the society, whereas religion is afraid to do that. So it's important to get to the spiritual essence of a religion. Otherwise, all we have is the outer form of the religion, which is basically the propaganda in many ways of that particular society that is promoting that particular religion.
Right. And let's bring some law into this, since I'm a lawyer and this show is about the laws that matter. And one thing is religion is protected under the law. Under our Constitution, Religious freedom and religious choice is a protected fundamental right. But veganism right now, at least in the United States, the UK just passed something similar to protect it. But right now, veganism, which is a moral lifestyle that we all practice religiously, is not protected under the Constitution. But yet other religions which reflect moral ideals are protected under the Constitution. This is something that I believe must change in the future and needs to change. And that is a perfect example of our disconnect in society and our belief that we are superior to others because we have a certain religion. And that's the problem with religion a lot of times. And I think religion is great if it works for you. If it works for you, stay with it. But the problem with religion a lot of the times is it works for the person, and then the person thinks that that's the only way, and then therefore their way is the way of the world and the land, and everyone else needs to be that way. And then suddenly there's war and bloodshed and a bunch of violence. What do you have to say about that? Like, veganism should be a protected constitutional class.
Right. Yeah. There's several questions in there. In the World Peace Diet, I have a chapter it's called, it's on science and religion, fundamentalist science and religion, and how these are both institutions that reinforce animal agriculture, basically. We use science to dominate and exploit animals and to abuse them. Then we use religion to justify that. And these institutions are both sons, I call it, sons of the herding culture. The herding culture is the overriding paradigm, the overriding pattern in our society. And so the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, these are really religions that came out of a herding culture. They support the herding culture really quite strongly. Even in their scriptures, they don't question it too much. They question it here and there. They do question it somewhat. Any call for compassion and kindness is a questioning, but in general, they're practiced that way. There are also religions that have the idea of a one God. And the other religions that I've studied, like Buddhism and Taoism, Confucianism, and many forms of Hinduism and other indigenous traditions.
And I think it's important that everyone knows that you were a Zen Buddhist monk.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I was a Zen Buddhist monk. These are non-theistic religions. There's no God in these religions, right? There's no God in them. The whole idea in these traditions is harmony with nature, harmony with each other, awakening consciousness to the truth that we are. There's not a God in these religions. So it's important to realize that there's billions of people on the planet that are following religions that are not so much dominated by the herding culture. Like when I go to China or Taiwan or other, Korea, I'm brought there by the Buddhists to promote veganism, because veganism is part of their religion that's essential. It's compassion for all life. And it would be wonderful if that would be true for Christianity and so forth. But I think that the underlying teachings have to be teachings of compassion and kindness for all life. And I think that's the foundation. And so generally speaking, since we have a society that's based at its core on animal agriculture, as you know, as a lawyer, the legal frameworks are going to support that, right? The legal frameworks, when we had human slavery, supported the ownership of human beings. Now we have ownership of animals, and so that's going to be supported by all the institutions in society. That's why I think veganism is not a religion, it's an ethical system, but we need to create, it needs to be respected as an ethical stance.
I think it needs to be under the law respected, yes, just as equally as religion would be. Right. I think that our laws are intended versions of these higher laws, and our laws are constantly changing and evolving to reflect what they should reflect. And that's why the Civil Rights Act began with race, and then it was extended to religion, and then gender, and then disability, and then marriage equality. And I believe we are the next constitutional class to be afforded strict scrutiny, but it's going to take some advocacy and changes in the laws.
Right.
I want to read, I marked some things. So this is the book, Buddhism and Veganism's Essays Connecting Spiritual Awakening and Animal Liberation. When we just put a quote up that someone said that veganism is a pathway to a higher spirituality. And many people who become vegan will say that their mental clarity and ability to connect and how they felt was more grounded and more pure, because there was nothing clouding their direct line of communication with any higher source, energy, or power. Here we go. Animal agriculture is the antithesis of spirituality. It reduces beings to the status of harvestable commodities, stealing their sovereignty through routine sexual abuse, mutilation, and death. This destroys not just their lives, purpose, and happiness, but undermines ours as well. It fosters a desensitized awareness focused on separateness, denial, entitlement, competition, and consumerism. Our freedom is eroded by enslaving animals.
Yes, I don't think I could have said that better myself.
I think at the beginning of this show, you started to say, how we're raping the animal. I mean, people think that dairy is not cruel. A lot of people don't realize what happens with dairy and how it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking not that long ago to a very well-educated woman. She had a PhD and so forth. And we were talking a little bit about dairy. And she said, wait a minute, are you telling me that cows don't just give milk? And I said, yes, that's what I'm saying. Cows don't just give milk. They're the same as human beings and other mammals. When we get to a certain age, females don't just start squirting milk out of their breasts for no reason. There's the whole idea is that after they're giving birth to a baby, the milk is intended for the baby. And so we have to impregnate these cows over and over again on what the industry refers to as rape racks and steal the milk and steal the sovereignty of these beings. And Madeline and I, living in an RV as we did for 18 years, traveling around the United States quite a few times over the years, we parked within earshot of dairy operations. And I can say all night long, you can hear the wails and the moans and the cries of these cows whose babies have been stolen. This is absolutely emotionally devastating, as you could imagine, as a woman, to have your baby that you love and want to nurse stolen and killed, and then you're put on the rape rack again and pregnant and lactating simultaneously. This breaks down the health of any mammal. So even though these cows would live 25 years, when they're 5 years old, they're sent off to slaughter. And this is what we're doing.
And this is criminal. These are crimes. These are crimes against humanity. Like you said, that when we do this to them, we enslave ourselves. We are enslaving humanity at the same time that we are enslaving them to make them things and products and commodities rather than beings. I love one thing you said. I don't remember where I read it, but you said something about, are you eating something or someone? That was powerful.
Right. I think that's the key point. See, we live in a society of a gigantic cover-up. Everything is covered up. Everything is other than what it appears to be. And I think as vegans, our job really is to become good detectives, to really see what's actually happening. I mean, not just as vegans, as anyone, as a human being, to try to see what's actually happening, not to just be fooled. I love that that line from The Who in one of their albums, "We won't get fooled again." We keep getting fooled. And I think dairy is part of the fool. As little kids, we're told that, cheese is healthy and yogurt is healthy. We need to eat these to have strong bones. And yet, if you look at any of the research, the countries with the highest amount of dairy have the worst bones, right? I mean, if you just keep repeating a lie over and over again, everyone will believe it. And it's to the profit of the dairy industry.
It's indoctrination.
The pharmaceutical industry. It's to the profit of all these industries. And so we're trying to help people understand something where there's a lot more money in people not understanding it. And I think that's why it's so important that Jane Unchained and you, Carissa, are doing this kind of educational work, because it's really about us teaching each other and learning.
It really is. And it's really about how it's all connected. Like the laws can be used for hard news, like petition. I filed a legal petition to shut down wet markets in New York. I run a law firm. But they can also be used to discuss how our constitutional morality and class needs to be expanded to include veganisms and vegan rights. I mean, a lot of times I think vegans, we are not the most ego-centered class. So we make our cause about the animals because that's what we care about. But the reality is if we got a little bit more egocentric and started to change and shift laws to protect us as vegans, that we would at the same time also help the animals and protect the animals, because once we're a protected constitutional class, then we have the ability to assert our rights if things are offensive to us. And then we are protected, and then therefore the animals will benefit. So it really is all connected. You've said a lot more. I just want to get through it because I don't want to run out of time. I know I have like marked up stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, some people have written comments about how the Bible can be used for good or evil. Someone else said that the character of Jesus also murdered 2,000 pigs, supporting fish and eating fish. You get the point.
Yeah, I understand all that.
Yeah. Well, what would you say to that before I get to what your book kind of says about religious stuff? How would you respond?
Well, I think we have to realize that whatever comes down to us in written books has been edited, and it's it's an approved version that somebody had to approve it. Under Emperor Constantine, they actually employed people called correctores, which would kind of correct the texts to make sure everything was in alignment with the official stories. So I think we have to take everything with a grain of salt, essentially, and try to use our own inner intuitive wisdom to separate the wheat from the chaff. What is in the Bible or any sacred text? What is really, what are teachings that foster spirituality, and what are teachings that deaden spirituality? Because there's both in sacred texts, and especially I think in the Western spiritual texts.
I like what you said here, though. You said, back at this book, religion is the social institution that is perhaps best suited to upholding ethical standards and demanding protection of the weak. That would be animals. You said spirituality can never condone the culturally approved practices of animal exploitation and abuse for food, clothing, entertainment, research, or any purpose, because it is rooted in respecting the interconnectedness and unity of life and consciousness. It is not concerned, as religion is, with supporting the existing cultural traditions and values.
Yeah.
And I think that's key, because that is the difference. It is really all one source energy, right? It's all one power. We assign religions to it and deities and whatever we want to follow, but at its core, it's all a spiritual practice. And I love how you say that you said something about any religion that does not question animal agriculture should be questioned.
Absolutely. I think any religion or any spiritual path or any so-called spiritual teacher who is eating animal foods or who is questioning the eating of animal foods should be questioned and held to account, because we the people, are really the ones that should take responsibility. I think each one of us as individuals to take responsibility for our own lives and for those who we are looking up to for guidance, spiritually and psychologically and emotionally and culturally. And if those leaders, people we're investing with authority and respect, are not questioning animal agriculture, then I think there's a major disconnect that is very harmful, probably not only to animals, but really to ourselves as well. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing more and more. We're going to see people who want to set themselves up as being spiritual teachers in some way, being held to account about this and say, well, okay, look, are you actually practicing what you preach? And that I think is the foundation. And it's not to judge anyone. Again, we're not judging, but just realizing that there has to be an inner integrity, that words and actions go together. If we're going to talk about love and peace and freedom and harmony, then our actions and our words need to be congruent. And that's true for us as vegans as well, that we treat not just the non-human animals with kindness and respect, but to treat human animals also with kindness and respect. And that's often very difficult to do, because very often human animals push our buttons and make us angry, whereas non-human animals don't usually do that.
Yeah, and I understand that when you get into things like religion, it creates a divide because people are so culturally ingrained. And someone just said, so it's basically reinterpreting the Bible. I don't think it's reinterpreting the Bible. I think the Bible is a script that's been interpreted for us. And it's all about what resonates with you. So
Right, we all interpret it. I mean, we all interpret everything. Even saying, if someone says, I'm going to take it literally, that's still an interpretation. And remember, when people took the Bible literally, that was used to promote slavery in the United States. People had their Bible in one hand and their slave whip in the other hand, and they said, the Bible says it's okay. And now, of course, we wouldn't dare to do that. So I think there's always an interpretation, and we can't avoid responsibility for that.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would you say to someone who, I was born and raised vegan, and I would get this question a lot, and it would drive me crazy. Well, when you eat that carrot, isn't that carrot screaming in pain, or that broccoli, or that plant? I mean, if you really believe in life and in all life, what about the fact that you're killing all these plants? I liked your answer for that at Hippocrates, so I want you to say it again. And I'm going to go on mute because there's something going on in my background.
Okay. Yeah. So good. So basically, an essay, but there's several different levels. The most important thing is to realize that when we're eating, causing much less suffering, not only to animals, but also to plants. Antibiotics, animal destroying, each person is destroying about 100 to 110 acres of rainforest every year. Because
you're cutting out.
To feed to cows and pigs and chickens. So eating animal-based foods is directly responsible for deforestation, cutting down trees. So if we really care about plants, it's essential to be vegan. That minimizes our environmental footprint. And then, of course, we know that it's not the same thing to confine and kill and stab, say, a tomato or a dog or a cat or a cow or a pig. If anyone who did that, maybe killed a dog of a neighbor and went to court over it, they would the judge, if they said, well, I think killing a dog and killing a tomato is the same thing, they probably wouldn't just go to jail. They might go to an institution for the criminally insane. We know it's not the same to kill an animal or to stab an apple or a tomato. I mean, we can't say that's the same. So we're really minimizing violence and suffering, and on every level. And as we move to a plant-based way of eating, the good news is that we can feed everyone on this earth on a fraction of the land, actually, if we eat plant-based foods. And that would allow forests and oceans and rivers and streams to regenerate, and prairies. We could have wildlife living freely. We could feed everyone, actually, on much less land and allow plants to thrive. It's a beautiful question, really. It leads to a beautiful answer.
Yeah, I agree. And I think some vegans get stuck on that answer. And I think it's it's helpful for vegans to understand how they can answer that question. And I think to sum it up, because your audio went in and out there a little bit, is that the meat industry in eating animals and animal agriculture is the most inefficient food supply, because animals consume more than they produce. So they're consuming all the grain and all our water, and they're taking up all of our land, and we're clearing our rainforests to continue to raise them and to slaughter them and to kill them for food, when they're eating way more food than they're producing for humans, the 7 billion humans on this planet. We're killing 3 billion animals a day to feed the 7 billion human animals on this planet. So it's the most inefficient food source. And I still think it's okay as a vegan to agree with those that are playing devil's advocate and saying, well, what about plants? You can agree. Yeah, I care about plants, and all things are energy and all things have life, but it's about minimizing your footprint, and it's about minimizing the pain and suffering, and it's about minimizing any harm on this planet while you're in human form. And one way to do that is to stop eating animals. Now, you do need to eat plants because we need to sustain ourselves, but you do not need to eat animals to sustain yourself. There are plenty of super healthy, super high functioning vegans. Just watch Game Changers, or I was born and raised vegan, or Mike Tyson's vegan. I mean, there's so many vegans out there that are major athletes and Olympians.
Well, Yeah, and I've been a vegan for 40 years, and Madeline and I travel all over North America, all worldwide. We're not worried about viruses or anything. I mean, you have a strong immune system. We don't have to cower in fear about anything that's happening, because we know we have a strong immune system, that we're happy, we're healthy, we can avoid drugs and pharmaceuticals and so forth, and realize that we're living a life that uses far fewer resources. You mentioned land and water. I also want to say petroleum. It takes a huge amount of petroleum and fossil fuels to grow all this grain, to feed all these animals, to pump all this water, to douse everything with chemical herbicides, fungicides, and pesticides. It's all unnecessary. We could use a fraction of the resources. This is a huge thing. We're not talking about a small change. Sometimes people who are eating meat think, well, it's just a little bit more. It's not. It's an enormous amount. We're talking about inefficiencies in animal agriculture that are so ridiculous. I mean, the fact that we could feed everyone on much less land, this needs to be really be understood. I think we see, like in the movie Cowspiracy and other research, that there's such good news inherent in this, that we live on a beautiful and abundant planet, and as we allow animals to thrive and wildlife to thrive, we're much healthier ourselves. And to remember that there are two kinds of agriculture. Animal agriculture, which has essentially been men's work, brings out the worst in us. We have to dominate and exploit and be violent to animals who are always resisting. But plant agriculture, if it's not done the way we do animal agriculture, which is really how it's done in our society with GMOs and pesticides and herbicides and this domination mentality, if plant agriculture is done the way it was done originally as women's work and as work that we can all do, working in harmony with nature, right? We work in harmony. Like we have a garden, we have 60 fruit trees, we have lots of food we're getting from the land by giving, and just amazing amount of abundance that comes from the earth that is in harmony with nature. Basically, that we plant one seed, we get 1,000 seeds, we get squashes, we get tomatoes, we get all these vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds that just come as a gift to us. This is something to celebrate, and there were always harvest celebrations in plant-based societies based on that understanding. We need to get back to that and support local farmers and grow our own food, I think, more. It's a spiritual thing to connect with the earth and nurture the earth and see the food coming back. I think the more we connect with the earth, connect with nature, and with the sacred feminine dimension of life, which is really the essence of spirituality, is the feminine dimension within all of us that yearns to love and nurture and protect life. And this is really the key thing, I think, that it's important to understand about spirituality. It's about love and kindness and respect for food and everything that we're doing, and honoring the sacred dimension of it every way that we possibly can. And we can all do that. That's the beautiful thing. We don't have to make excuses and say, well, my father taught me that I need to eat meat to be healthy. We can question those things. We question where all the lies that went into our mind and replace those lies with truth. The truth of the interconnectedness of all life and the beauty that surrounds us.
Okay. I had to mute myself because there's this fire drill thing.
Right.
Yeah. You're right. So all good points. And I think that one thing I like that you brought up is, see what I mean? This whole thing.
I can say a
Mother
little bit.
Nature.
I can say a little bit
go
more.
ahead. What I want you to expand upon is just like, it's about man's humanity to Mother Nature and the feminine element. And that, so long as we continue to assault Mother Nature, we're going to have a collective consciousness that's also being assaulted, and our environment's going to fail, and we're going to have zoonotic diseases like mad cow's disease and swine flu and avian flu and MERS and SARS. And, we just need to stop, and we need to stop evaluating things in these little cubbies of disconnection that then we can justify, when we really need to take a step back and take a pause and look at the whole big picture of the interconnectedness of this world and us. And I am going to let you talk because this is hard to talk over.
Right. Actually, we can hear you very well, so don't worry too much. But actually, that's such an important point. I refer to this in the World Peace Diet as the boomerang effect, which is a core teaching in all the world wisdom traditions. The idea that whatever we sow, we're going to reap. If we sow carrots, we're not going to get celery. If we sow violence and disease and terror and fear and pain, and as you say, assault to billions of animals every day, cause that, pay for that, vote for that, and then eat that, it's very naive to think that we're worthy to live in a society of peace and harmony and love and freedom and radiant health for ourselves when we're causing the opposite of that to billions of other beings. So we are all called to question all the institutions in our society, not only outside of us, but inside of us, in our own mind, the ideas that we've internalized, to realize that our own minds have been colonized by animal agriculture, and to do the best we can to purify our mind, purify our behavior, to bring our lives back into alignment with our own inherent wisdom, the wisdom of the sacred feminine dimension of life, and live our lives as an expression of kindness and respect for others. And when we do that, we just find joy. That's the beautiful thing, is that people think if we give up meat, we're giving up something. I'm giving up some pleasure. I'm giving up my identity. But the beautiful thing is that we get so much more. We get radiant health. We get joy. We get inner peace. We get kindness and happiness. We get beautiful friends. We get health. I mean, our own health. We get to contribute to a healthier world. We get our self-esteem and self-respect. We can't have self-esteem and self-respect if we don't respect others, if we abuse and dominate others. So this is the hard fact. This is like the basic unstoppable law that we are going to be reaping whatever we sow. And we can all begin right now, every day, sowing seeds of kindness, of gratitude, of joy, of liberation, moving to an organic, whole food, plant-based way of eating and living, and treating other human beings with kindness and respect, and of course animals as well.
I'm gonna talk over this still. So okay. I think it's important. You said the law of harvest, and I like the comment, you reap what you sow. And I also want to bring in the law of unintended consequences, because when we eat meat and we contribute to the animal suffering, then we are contributing to the environment falling apart. We are contributing to our own health falling apart. We are contributing to the murder of other beings. And that is the law of unintended consequences. So we can talk about human laws, but these are the laws that matter. Hence the name of the show. And
right. That's a very good point. The law of unintended consequences. People say, well, you know, I bought this hamburger, but I didn't really intend for the cow to be killed. Right? I mean, as soon as I buy the hamburger, I'm voting for that. I'm basically, as soon as I take out my wallet and pay for something that's causing violence, I'm the hired killer, really, quite honestly. So if we're paying for violence, the consequences we may not intend, we don't have any anger or hatred or any desire to be cruel and abusive to that cow or that fish or that chicken. But that is what we're doing. We're causing that by our actions. And I think it's very important that we, in a sense, mature in our understanding, take responsibility for that, and sow seeds of kindness and respect as best we can. And we can all do that. I mean, that's the beautiful thing, that all of us have the capacity to question what we're doing, act in a different way.
And I think that that's a good segue into the final part of this segment, because it is all about how you wish to spend your dollars and how you wish to vote, basically, for your spiritual vote of the kind of world you want to live in. And so while you might be eating a hamburger or a hot dog, you're not really realizing that you're contributing to the murder of a cow or pig. So that is why I started BVeg, the vegan certification program, which is a global program to certify vegan products around the world, because as vegans and as those that wish to contribute to this higher collective consciousness should be aware of the labels and aware of the products that they buy, not only the parent product, but the product and the whole supply chain of products, to keep all suppliers accountable as well. So the next part of our show, I'm bringing on Leslie Riley. She's from Mama Biscuit, and she has a America's first gourmet biscuit company. Hi, Leslie, and nice to see you. So she's got the first gourmet biscuit company. I guess we lost Will for a second. In America, right? The first gourmet biscuit company. Yeah. And you certified vegan a biscuit. Yes. That is now going to be in Whole Foods and Publix, a BVeg certified biscuit. And it's the first, isn't it the first vegan biscuit to hit the market, or?
Yeah, it's going to hit the market. It hasn't hit the market yet, and we haven't disclosed where we're going yet. So we'll keep that under wraps until they actually land on the shelves. But it is the first certified vegan biscuit on the market. that's about to hit the market, and we're super excited about that. That a lot of stores are actually looking into more vegan options for bread, and not only are they looking at the vegan options, but they're also looking at the ingredients, because a lot of the vegan options out there in bread, you know, their sugar is definitely, it does have that bone char in it. And I know that's one of the things that you certified, and we tried to make sure that it didn't, the sugar that I use in it does not have the bone char in it. So
right.
And we're happy to say that they are now soy free as well. So that's good.
That's great, because I know a lot of people have issues with soy who are vegans. So I wanted to also bring up, because it's consistent with our theme today of veganism and spirituality and doing better in this world, and when you know better to do better. And I think that Mama Biscuit had some pretty good karma, considering you started out with the Feeding the Faith biscuit by giving these biscuits to homeless people and elderly back in 2015. And now you're actually starting to hit the supermarket chains with vegan brands.
Yes.
So,
yes. So, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the Feeding the Faith and what's behind that.
Well, Feeding Faith, I woke up one night, and, you know, and this whole journey has just been a faith journey for me in regards to the biscuits, because, you know, not only do we do vegan, but we do traditional. We started with traditional. We have gluten-free, and then we just launched into giving people vegan friendly options where they are 100% plant-based. Part of the Feeding Faith initiative started because I wanted to make sure that, you know, even though there were premium biscuits, that we still wanted to make sure that seniors and homeless still were able to eat. And so in regards to the homeless, we had a street team that would go out and actually give them the biscuits. And then we had a little scripture with it about feeding their faith, and, you know, making sure that they were, you know, fed not only, you know, through the biscuits, but also spiritually as well.
And yeah, and that's important. Feeding our soul, right?
Yes,
and
exactly.
what better way to feed our soul than with these vegan biscuits, which you sent us here. And there's the VVeg certified vegan symbol right there. You know, and here's another one.
Oh yes, we have about 6 different flavors of vegan flavors, but only about 2 or 3 of them will actually hit the market this year.
Which 2 or 3? Obviously those 2, and what else?
So it'll be the vegan buttermilk, the vegan cheddar chive, and the vegan sweet potato.
The vegan cheddar chive. I have to try that one. That one didn't come in the mail. But actually, did Courtney from Veg World, did you get the vegan cheddar chive in the mail? I know Veg World did a special on nope, you got the pumpkin
and the sweet potato.
So
and the funfetti. She got the funfetti as well.
Yes. And that one, I can't wait for everyone to try, because it is, I mean, you think of like a perfect blend of savory and sweet. It's amazing. I mean, more sweet for sure. It's a rainbow biscuit too, so it's just fun to eat.
I didn't get to try that one either. No fair. I saw you unwrap it with all the sprinkles, or, you know, the confetti.
Amazing.
So, yeah. I'll bring Will up on the screen since he's still here. I wonder, how can I remove I don't know how to move the banner, but, you know, I think it's important, you know, Leslie, to be transition. I think it's great that, you know, you weren't a vegan company, but you're transitioning and answering market demand to vegan products, and it's really picking up. So, yeah, tell us about how the vegan, having a vegan biscuit has really helped your marketing.
Oh my goodness. Having the vegan biscuit, I remember a young lady, she was following me on Instagram last year, and she had said to me, she said, hey, I'm having an event in California. Can you actually make some vegan biscuits and send them to me? And I was like, yeah, I don't really know how, but yeah, I'll research it and do it. And I did. And then we just kept tinkering with it in the kitchen, and we finally were able to figure it out. And we wanted to have not just a vegan biscuit, but a good vegan biscuit.
So I have to ask you, does this good vegan biscuit, because my mom made them for me. I haven't seen them yet. I can't do all these. I wish I could share them through the screen. Does it taste as good as the real biscuit?
It tastes It tastes just as good. Actually, I had given them to a lot of my non-vegan friends who did not even realize that they were vegan. So I told them afterwards. They ate them. They loved them. I said, well, what is your feedback? And they had no idea that they were vegan. So that let me see that we were on the right track.
And you know what? And that's where food is headed right now. And that's great, because being vegan is not a sacrifice. And you should watch New Day, New Chef on Amazon Prime. Jane Velez Mitchell's the host of that. And we have some amazing celebrity chefs on there, which really show us that being vegan is not a sacrifice. And another thing is we just certified vegan at BVeg, a plant-based line that is from JBS, the meat manufacturer. So, but the good thing is they created this plant-based line that we gave to our maintenance guy in our apartment building, because he serves barbecue and has this side job of a restaurant, and he fed it to his family, and he didn't tell them that it wasn't real. And then when they were done eating the meal, they were shocked. They couldn't believe that it wasn't real beef, and it wasn't real ground, and it wasn't, so I think it's a positive thing that things are starting to taste. For those that are wanting to transition and are craving the taste, they can still get the flavor they want without harming anyone.
Right, without the compromise. Absolutely.
So, Courtney, do you have any of these biscuits heated up like I do?
I don't know. I totally got sidetracked, but no, I mean, I have a review of me trying them. So if anybody wants to go look at that, she knows. I shared it, and they're amazing. I can't wait till you try.
Let me just try it real fast.
Yeah, go for it.
It's good. What do you normally put with it? Like butter or like a vegan butter?
Yeah, butter, jelly, your vegan butter,
I've been doing a lot of jam with mine. So all kind of fruit jams. They're so flaky, and I love how it's so easy. Like all you have to do is pop it in the microwave for 45 seconds, done, or toaster oven or whatever you use, I was so impressed with it. I grew up on biscuits, so you nailed it.
The sweet potato one's really good.
Good.
Yep.
So where can people buy them? Where can people find them? And then
you can just purchase them online. You can purchase them online at my online store, www.mamabiscuit.com. And then if they continue to follow us and sign up, then I'll be able to share the retailers where they can find them across the U.S.
And when will they be available in major retail chains? How soon?
Late summer. Late
summer. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. These are delicious. And we have 1 minute left. So, okay, my mom wants to try one in the last minute. She feels left out. She cooked them. Let me get in here.
Hi, Mom.
Oh, my gosh. Sorry, I had like the fire drill today and the this and the that. Here, let's see. That's a pumpkin or sweet potato. Oh my gosh. This is this one. Oh, that's outrageous. Sorry. Okay. I'm just trying one more. We got to go. Anyway, it's good. Okay. All right. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our show, The Laws That Matter. It was a fun show. We had Dr. Will Tuttle. We talked about spirituality and the law, and these are the laws that matter. We will be back next week on Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and hope to see you then. Next week, we'll have Dr. Michael Greger. Stay tuned.